Hello and welcome to TVB News. Chief Executive John Lee congratulated fencer Edgar Cheung Ka-long and swimmer Siobhan Haughey earlier today. The CE also praised the two athletes' coaches, saying that their work has become the pride of Hong Kong. Lee believes their success at the Olympic Games could reinvigorate the local sports sector, while businesses across the city offered special discounts to celebrate the special achievements. Timothy Lee tells us more.
Chief Executive John Lee, who is currently visiting Southeast Asia, hailed Edgar Cheung's historic victory, adding that fellow Hong Kong residents are sharing his joy. Speaking in Cambodia earlier today, the CE congratulated Cheung via video call and praised his perseverance. Lee also praised Siobhan Haughey for swimming prowess and pointed out her athletic spirit. The CE believes the success of Hong Kong athletes in this year's Olympics would generate a new wave of interest in sports. This, as Cheung's famous gesture of sticking out his tongue after winning his matches, has also become a hot topic on the internet recently. The Olympic champion said in an interview that he wanted to imitate basketball legend Michael Jordan, as he was inspired by the NBA champion in his youth. Even though Cheung's gold medal game took place at around 4 this morning, some residents still stayed up late to watch the match. Some chose to support the fencer at shopping malls offering live Olympic broadcast. This woman noted she felt immense pride in Hong Kong's athletes and that she felt very emotional about Cheung's victory. While this woman says she had not felt such a vibrant atmosphere in the city for a long time, adding that the city's athletes fully demonstrated the spirit of Hong Kong. Some businesses took the opportunity to roll out special discounts to celebrate the athletes' victories. This restaurant manager, whose eatery offers free drink upgrades, said they wanted the community to rejoice and enjoy a refreshing drink with the athletes. Besides shopping malls and restaurants, some airlines are even offering special $1 one-way tickets as part of the celebration. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
Chief Executive John Lee has arrived in Cambodia from Laos on the second leg of his 6-day ASEAN trip. Leading a high-level delegation, Lee arrived in Cambodian capital Phnom Penh around noon. He was received by the Chinese ambassador to Cambodia, Wang Wenbin. Wang said he had just met another delegation led by Leung Chun-ying, formerly Hong Kong chief executive and now vice chairman of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference. Wang said Lee and Leung's visits reflected that Hong Kong attaches great importance to fostering China-Cambodia relations. It's understood Lee will meet with Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet Wednesday morning. There will be a lunch banquet with Hong Kong businessmen in Cambodia, and a number of memoranda of understanding will be signed before he sets off for Vietnam. The Commissioner of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Hong Kong, Cui Jian-chun, held a briefing with local and international media today. Cui said most diplomats he had met backed the city's national security law. Cui Jian-chun was appointed to helm the Commissioner's Office of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Hong Kong in April. 3 months into the new role, Cui told local and international press that he had met not just industry representatives but also 62 consuls general. He said most diplomats support the national security legislation. And when meeting Gregory May, the U.S. Consul General in Hong Kong,
both sides expressed the concerns about the law enforcement and the judicial system. I express my position that Hong Kong has independent judicial system. Greg May concerned about some democratic activists. They use the word democratic activist, and I think that Hong Kong, we don't use this kind of name. I know you know what I mean.
So what does democracy mean to him?
I do believe big country, small country, rich country, or poor country, every country has to choose your own democracy in the national context, national condition.
He believes Hong Kong's political system will set a good example for the world to learn from in 5 to 10 years' time. Noting that the U.S. Consul General in Hong Kong has not met up with Chief Executive John Lee in recent months, Cui hopes there could be more candid exchanges between both sides, while reiterating that U.S. sanctions against the city leader are not respectful. The commissioner urged overseas governments to support Hong Kong's bid to join the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or RCEP, so the city can help the region's development in its role as a superconnector. The food poisoning incident in Japan has sparked concerns in Hong Kong. The Center for Food Safety said if meat is stored for too long after being marinated and cooked, Staphylococcus aureus may multiply rapidly. Helen Chen reports.
Staphylococcus aureus is a bacteria that mainly spreads through direct contact with wounds, but there are also chances of it being introduced through ingestion. The Center for Food Safety said that Staphylococcus aureus is commonly found on human skin and hair, and in the nasal cavity, throat, and wounds of humans. Not properly cleaning hands before handling food may lead to contamination. If meat is stored at room temperature after being marinated and cooked, Staphylococcus aureus may multiply rapidly. Chinese-style roast meat, or siu mei and lo mei, are among food at comparatively high risk of being contaminated with the bacteria. In addition to being thoroughly cooked, food that has been cooked and prepared for later consumption should be stored at 60 degrees Celsius or above and be consumed within 4 hours. An infectious disease specialist said people infected with Staphylococcus aureus may start vomiting and develop abdominal pain and fever within 30 minutes to 8 hours. Dr. Joseph Tang said the bacteria release toxins in human intestines and can result in fatigue, irregular heartbeat, and even twitching of limbs in some cases. He said it's important to prevent the patient from having severe dehydration and electrolyte imbalance. Dr. Tang warns that if the toxins released by the bacteria reach the bloodstream, toxic shock may occur, especially among those with a weak immune system. So, people should wash their hands thoroughly before preparing food. Helen Chen, TVB News.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed heavy retaliation against the Palestinian armed group Hezbollah in Lebanon. This follows a deadly rocket attack on a football field in the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights, killing 12 children and teenagers. Israel said the rocket was fired by Hezbollah. Danny Zhou has more.
A rocket from Lebanon Saturday evening slammed into a football field in Masht al-Shams in the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights. The strike left a crater about 2 meters wide, killing 12 youngsters and injuring at least 20 others. On Monday, thousands of black-clad mourners took to the streets to lay the body of an 11-year-old victim to rest. On the same day, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met the bereaved families and community leaders, vowing, "Our response will come. It will be severe." But Netanyahu's presence faced blatant rejection by many friends and relatives of the slain children, as they shouted he was exploiting the bloodshed for political gain and asked him to leave. It was the highest civilian death toll in Israeli-held territory since a mass attack on October the 7th. Israel and the US have blamed Iran-backed Hezbollah for the attack, though the group has denied responsibility. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant earlier made clear that Hezbollah will pay a price, while officials said Israel is not seeking an all-out war. Mulling its response, the Israeli army has eliminated the Hezbollah launcher in Lebanon that was used to fire projectiles into northern Israel. And apart from its routine strikes on the border, Israel hit villages in Shabaa and Shakra in southern Lebanon, killing 2 and injuring 3 others. Fearing a potential flare-up in violence, Lebanon's foreign minister has engaged in intensive diplomatic contacts and held a meeting with Hezbollah officials in Beirut. There's also a flurry of calls from Washington attempting to avert a full-blown war and deter Israel from striking Beirut or major civil infrastructure.
We absolutely condemn this weekend's horrific attack in Majd al-Shams that killed a number of children and teenagers playing soccer. The States will continue to support efforts to reach a diplomatic solution along that blue line that will, number one, end these terrible attacks once and for all, and number two, allow Israeli and Lebanese citizens on both sides of the border to safely return to their homes. Israel has every right to respond, but nobody wants a broader war, and I'm confident that we'll be able to avoid such an outcome.
Several airlines announced the suspension of their flights to Lebanon, while some Western countries urged their citizens to depart as tensions heightened. As for the war in Gaza, Hamas said on Monday that Netanyahu has added new conditions and demands to a U.S. ceasefire proposal to stall the negotiations. And Netanyahu's office responded that it was the Hamas leadership that was preventing the deal by demanding 29 changes to the proposal. Danny Zhou, TVB News.
And still ahead, the dispute over Venezuela's presidential election results continue. Junior doctors in England reportedly reach a pay rise deal with the government. Welcome back. Security forces have clashed with protesters in Venezuela's capital as the dispute over who won the country's presidential election continues. In Beijing, President Xi Jinping has congratulated Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, who was said to have won Sunday's vote by a slim majority by the National Electoral Council, who are loyal to Maduro. The opposition continues to claim the vote was rigged and encourage their supporters to come to Caracas. David Garrett reports.
They marched on the capital from miles away, from suburbs, from slums, from other cities. Venezuelans showing their unhappiness with the result of the presidential election, which the National Electoral Council awarded to Nicolas Maduro. The electoral body's announcement earned him a 6-year term. The opposition claims it has proof its candidate, Edmundo González, secured more than 2/3 of the vote. The numbers grew as the day progressed. Motorcycles joined the columns of people who had decided to descend on the capital, Caracas. Small fires were lit, but protests were peaceful. Later, when security forces blocked their path, scuffles broke out. Running battles in the streets took place. Maduro considers the election a settled matter. He addressed the nation, blaming the opposition. They want to create a political crisis, Maduro said. International calls for evidence of transparent voting data grows. The US was one of the first countries to criticise the electoral process, with some international observers not allowed into Venezuela to assess authenticity.
We have serious concerns that this result does not reflect the will and the votes of the Venezuelan people, and it's critical that every vote is counted fairly and transparently, and that election officials immediately share information with the opposition and independent observers without delay, and that electoral representatives publish the detailed tabulation of votes.
Argentina called the result a fraud. President Javier Milei told followers on social media that Maduro's victory was worthless, adding that socialism would end. Panama withdrew diplomatic personnel and suspends diplomatic relations with Venezuela. Caribbean leaders at a regional summit in Grenada are waiting to see what happens next.
Credible process of that allows person to request what the law entertains, recount and so on. So those are all components of the election. We are not pronouncing, we cannot pronounce one way or the other.
The opposition in Venezuela is not giving up. One of their main voices, Maria Corina Machado, who was barred from running in the election, said their win was overwhelming. The man she now wants to be president, Edmundo González, says the mobilization of people across the country shows a desire for change. Both called on those who marched to remain calm and gather peacefully at 11 a.m. Tuesday to celebrate the results. David Garrett, TVB News.
A trade union representing junior doctors in England has reportedly reached an improved deal with the British government for a 22.3% average pay rise over 2 years. The apparent breakthrough follows a series of strikes by junior doctors since early 2023 over demands for better pay. The British Medical Association has been seeking a 35% pay rise, which it says is necessary to cover the impact of inflation. A spokesman for British Prime Minister Keir Starmer did not confirm the deal, but said the Labour government wants to constructively bring the strikes to an end. And a quick look at the weather tomorrow. Mainly cloudy with some showers. Temperatures will range between 27 and 31 degrees Celsius. It will be even hotter on Thursday and Friday. And that's the news. Thank you for watching.